It's that time of year again. It's hard to believe that how quickly these years go by. As you can see, the salt piles are ready. We have the plows ready, and the city of Boston is ready as we head into Boston winter. Our winters, we know, in the city can be tough, but the people of Boston are even tougher than the winters. So we've lived through winters that seemed like they would never end. Certainly in 2015, that winter we set a record for snow. We had 10 straight weekends of snowing, which was incredible. Also, many of you remember the blizzard of '78, so we know that anything is certainly possible. And we are working to make sure that we're prepared whatever we get thrown at us by winter this year. We're doing everything we can to keep our roads safe during and before, during, and after a storm. Right behind me, we have 12,000 tons of salt. We have 44,000 tons of salt citywide. We start to make sure that we replenish our salt in August. So we get ready for the winter in August. We're expanding our fleet of snow and ice equipment up to 200 pieces of equipment. This year we've added new equipment to service our growing bike lane network in the city. We'll also have a new GPS system that will allow us to better track snowplow activity in real time. So as people call us to tell us that their streets haven't been plowed, we'll be able to see what the situation is and why they haven't been plowed. Our Chief of Streets, Chris Osgood, is going to tell us more about keeping our people safe and how we're going to be rolling out the different equipment. We believe that in order to keep people safe, we need to keep them informed. We have our Alert Boston system has been very effective in keeping people in the loop. We have that in 4 different languages. If you haven't already, I ask everyone to sign up for Alert Boston. It takes only a couple of minutes. We will notify you by phone, by text, by email in the event of an emergency, and Director Renee Fielding will tell you more about our safety protocols. When it comes to snow days, our public schools will continue to alert families about closures. Last year we had 5 school days. I know the young people of our city are hoping for a lot more than 5. We're hoping for a lot fewer than 5. And in the case of school closings, our Boston Center for Youth and Family Centers will be open to children 7 years old and older. It's a safe and warm place for kids to read, exercise, and play while parents go to school. And we're going to continue to try and cancel school the day before if we can, just to give parents the ability to be able to find childcare. We were pretty successful with that last year. I think last year we had 1 day where we canceled school and we didn't get as much snow the next day. But it does allow parents the opportunity to kind of find places for their kids to go and not wait for the morning. As much as possible, we're committed to keeping all of our city services running smoothly as the storm hits. That includes our 311 constituent hotline. We added extra staff during snowstorms. They answer questions like about closures, plowing, and finding a place to park. As always, our municipal lots are available for residents during snow emergencies. While we're on the topic of parking, I want to talk a little bit about everyone's favorite topic, and that's space savers. Everyone, particularly the press and people, love talking about it, and I guess I do too. The rule is 48 hours after a snowstorm, after we declare that it will be a snowstorm that you can put a space saver out, you'll be able to put your space saver in space. That's up to 48 hours, except in the South End. The South End tried a pilot program many years ago that it's kind of turned into a permanent program where they're not having space savers. Chief of Civic Engagement Jerome Smith is going to come up here in a few minutes and talk more about space savers and other neighborhood concerns. And we know that winter can be especially hard on our senior citizens and people that are housebound, or people that have some disabilities. So we have many programs in place to make sure that members of our community can stay warm and safe and healthy. Through the Senior Save program and Boston Home Center, we're helping seniors replace their boiling systems. So I'd ask the press to help us with that, getting information out to have the senior citizens in our city that own their property, if they have an old boiler and they'd like to upgrade them, to contact the city of Boston so we can help them in replacing that. This also helps them it keeps them safe in their home, but also helps them cut the energy bills. The Elderly Commission can also help access things like fuel assistance and food for seniors that need it, so you can call 311 to stay connected. And obviously in the cold months are very hard, particularly for our homeless individuals. So our quality of life in our shelters, we're working to make sure we can increase capacity in our shelter system. As always, our ultimate goal is to get people permanent housing, and we've created a new system to be able to help chronically homeless individuals with support and housing. We've been able to house over the last 4 years 1,200 chronically homeless folks, but we have more work to do. But in the meantime, while we're doing that, we want to continue to make sure that we provide safe spaces for our homeless individuals. Chief Sheila Dillon is going to talk more about our efforts to make sure everyone has a place to call home. So we're asking for everyone's help in keeping people safe this winter. If you see someone out in the storm, we're asking people to call 311 to help them get shelter. We're also asking people to check on their elderly residents as time moves on, whether it's shoveling or just checking to make sure they have everything they need before or after a storm. We're asking to help people with shoveling walkways as well. And if anyone during a snow emergency sees anything, 911 is always the appropriate way to contact people. I know that you're going to have a lot of questions for me in a minute, and I look forward to answering those questions. Before I bring up Chief Osgood, I also want to thank the press because you are an important partner with us, particularly around the information notification of a storm and letting people know the rights and rules and the regulations that we have, but also the contact with people. So thank you for that. Without further ado, I want to bring up Chris Osgood, Chief of Streets in the City of Boston.
Thank you, Mayor. For the city, preparing for winter and responding to storms is a team effort. Our public works team is led by Mike Brohl. He really oversees the salt, the equipment, and as the mayor said, the team that's wearing the yellow jackets behind me, who are really essential to our work in advance of a storm, during a storm, and after a storm. As the mayor said, on this site right now, we've got around 14,000 tons of salt here and another 3,000 tons of salt over there, and across the city, about 44,000 tons of salt in our neighborhoods ready to be deployed in advance of a storm. Brian Coughlin and Darlene Williams really focus on the salt logistics over the course of the winter, making sure that we got the right salt levels and the right locations to be able to respond. And while we're typically going to be using on our streets salt in the form you see it here, the rock salt form, we are going to be continuing to use some brining solution in some key locations as well. As the mayor said, we've been working hard through our central fleet team led by Bill Coughlin to make sure that we've got about 200 pieces of city equipment ready to spread salt and plow snow. This includes everything from the large truck-mounted snowblower that you see behind us, which we used towards the end of last winter in February and March after some of our most severe storms, to smaller pieces of equipment like a John Deere skid steer, which you see sort of in the shadow of the truck-mounted snowblower, which we've been using on some of our cycle tracks and our protected bike lanes across the city. As the mayor also mentioned, we've been very focused on installing a new GPS fleet tracking system led by Rob Pardo and other folks in our radio shop in the city. This is a piece of equipment or a piece of technology which is going to give our managers a better system to be able to support the 200 people that are out and about actually plowing our streets and salting our streets during the course of the storm, and the additional 500 contracted snowplowers that we call in our most severe storms. All of this work that we do will be sort of well complemented again by that team that is out there every single day, and under Mike's leadership, under Mike Brohl's leadership, we've restructured our shifts a little bit this year so that we'll have as many people on in advance of the AM commute as we do have in advance of the PM commute. We'll have as many people on essentially at 5 a.m. as we have on at 3 p.m. in the afternoon to make sure that our streets and roads are free and clear and ready for everybody to be able to use. During the course of the storm and after a storm, our code enforcement team is deployed across the city, led by Steve Tankel, and they're really making sure that our sidewalks are free and clear of snow, and that snow from private property isn't being pushed back out onto sidewalks or pushed back out into the public right-of-way. Essential to all of this work is really the collaboration between our public works team and our Boston Transportation Department, led by Commissioner Gina Fiandaca. Under her leadership and the leadership of Brad Garrett, we've got around 140 parking enforcement officers and our tow unit who really make sure that our curbs are free and clear so that the plows can be able to get to the curb, and that some of our bottleneck intersections that get identified get addressed very quickly. And perhaps most importantly, in our team that's focused on responding to storms is the public. We rely on the public to use 311 to let our transportation department know and let our public works department know places that we can come out and provide some additional help. We rely on the public to shovel out sidewalks within 3 hours after the end of the storm and to help out neighbors who might need similar service because they can't do it for themselves. We rely on the public to use public transportation where possible during the course of the storm, and we appreciate when folks in advance of a storm don't park their cars close to corners, which makes it far easier for our plow drivers. And as the mayor said, in advance of a snow emergency, move vehicles off of our main routes, off of our key arterials, and have their cars parked at some of our 32 municipal lots or some of the private lots throughout the city that folks can find by going to boston.gov/snow or by calling 311. So with all of that, we look forward to another terrific winter, and I will turn it over to another key member of our team, our Director of Emergency Management, Renee Fielding.
Good morning. The first step in being prepared for the winter season is signing up to receive emergency notifications from Alert Boston. Like the mayor said, in less than 2 minutes you can register with Alert Boston to receive real-time weather warnings and updates via phone, a text message, or an email. And recognizing the diverse nature of Boston's population, the Alert Boston system allows notifications to be broadcast in 4 different languages, including English, Spanish, French, and Chinese. Signing up for the system will ensure you are aware when a snow emergency and parking ban goes into effect. The second thing to do to get ready for the weather, check your emergency supply kit. In case you experience a power outage or have to stay inside during a blizzard, make sure you have food, water, flashlights, radio, batteries, and extra blankets readily available if needed. Once your family is prepared, we ask you to be aware of your neighbors, especially the elderly and those with access and functional needs, and make sure your winter plan includes checking in on them before and after severe weather. And if severe weather arrives, the Office of Emergency Management is fully prepared to activate our Emergency Operations Center. The EOC brings together multiple city, state, and nonprofit agencies who work in unison to coordinate resources and assist in response and recovery efforts. Our common goal is always to get the city back up and running as safely and quickly as possible. We look forward to partnering with our fellow city agencies to ensure a safe winter for all our residents and visitors to Boston. Next up will be Chief Sheila Dillon of Housing.
Thank you. Good morning. As the mayor mentioned, we're working very hard to make sure that our homeless are safe this winter. And we've been working with our Boston Public Health Commission, represented here today by Commissioner Valdez-Lupi, and the state, represented here today by Lynn Tordo, and Jim Green is also here. Our current system has room for about 1,550 adults. Knowing that our shelters get full in the winter, we have brought on capacity for an additional 200 beds. We think that will get us through the winter, but in the case of extreme cold, we are prepared to bring on more beds as necessary. Bridge Over Troubled Waters has brought on space for young adults that find themselves homeless this winter. And the Commonwealth has also brought on additional beds outside the city in Cambridge, Brockton, Worcester, and Springfield. And this is very, very helpful, as many of the homeless individuals in the city of Boston are not from Boston. So having additional space outside the city relieves pressure here. Pine Street is bringing on additional street outreach with additional vans and personnel to make sure that everyone that is on the street gets into shelter and into a warm place. And as the mayor mentioned, we are continuing to house many, many homeless people, and we will continue with those efforts and even speed up those efforts before the cold winter hits. Changing gears for a minute, the mayor mentioned that if you are elder in the city of Boston and you have a very old heating system, please call 635-HOME and see if we can get you a new boiler or heater before the winter. We have a very, very good program with energy efficient heating systems. Or if you find yourself with an emergency, a home emergency, all of a sudden your heater's gone on the blink, your windows have cracked, your roof starts to leak, call 311. We have city employees and contract employees that we're able to respond to you within 24 hours. We don't want any senior to be cold this winter. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Chief Smith, Chief of Civic Engagement, who's going to talk to you about snow savers and other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. as you can see, we have a team here. The mayor's put together a team here who has really thought through about how we should handle the snowstorms as we come in the approaching winter. I think it's very important to understand, members of the community, that 311 really is truly your connection on how you're going to be able to receive services in the event of a snowstorm. So please remember to call 311. You can tweet at 311. You can email 311. But we just really need you to work with us to kind of coordinate what you're seeing out on the streets as we are coordinating the teams back at City Hall and our various locations. It's just very important that we get that information ahead of time. Just a couple of other things. You know, when we get into these snow events, it's very important that we take care of everything that's going on and our neighbors. And so you are the ones who know if you have an elderly individual or an individual who might be disabled, who might not be able to shovel the sidewalk. We need you to kind of report those incidences, reach out to us. Some of those individuals may be getting food assistance or meal programs and things like that we have to try to get access, and we don't want them to feel isolated. So if you could just check on them in the middle of a snowstorm, it can go a long way to kind of help us develop a community. But also, we want you to take a minute to go outside and recognize where all of your ramps and where your fire hydrants are. And we'd like for you to assist us in the event of a snowstorm of going out and actually shoveling out some of the ramps and some of the hydrants for the event of fire. That little time that the fire department has to get to that hydrant, it can be helpful if you take a little preparation and help us by identifying where those fire hydrants are. The Office of Neighborhood Services will be out both during the storm and after the storm, working with snow teams with the Department of Public Works to kind of identify certain areas and certain work orders that have been generated by Boston 311. And then just to repeat what the mayor said previously regarding space savers. Space savers are only to be used in the neighborhoods when the city declares a snow emergency. If there's a snowstorm but we do not declare a snow emergency, space savers are prohibited. If the city does declare a snow emergency, please look up on our website. You can find the various lots that we work with the Boston Transportation Department for you to move your vehicles to, and space savers will be allowed for 48 hours after the end of the snow emergency. And also remember that in the south end, the neighborhood has banned space savers, and that is now a permanent fixture in that neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. And I also want to thank Boston Police, Boston Fire, and EMS that's here with us today for their great work.